name again, repeat.
Bihar Sultana.
Bihar Sultan, okay.
Sir, is it to stand up against something going wrong in the society? Is it only the goodwill, true heart, honesty and passion required? Or is it the power that overpowers the all? You said the incident with you about that petrol pump incident. If anyone from mine, if it happens with me, and I do the same thing as you, I feel like in a MLA region, I will be suppressed.
Last question. Sultana, right? Sultana. How to oppose wrong without getting deeply hurt? It's a good question. There are two basic principles. One is, individually you cannot always fight. It's all nice to be heroic. There are a couple of people who were killed, like for instance in Bihar, I think in Gaya or someplace, Sachendra Dubey, that young chap who is fighting against corruption on the national highways, they butchered him. I felt so sad. If only he reached out to somebody like me. I would have helped him how to fight, because you also must know how to fight. The bravado, taking on the mafias. There was another Indian oil officer somewhere in Western India, Rajasthan or someplace, I forget his name now, because he was trying to curb the adulteration in kerosene, which is a big thing in India. He was also butchered. I forget his name. Both cases I grieved personally, but I could have helped them. If only they knew whom to reach out, how to fight the battle without getting exposed personally to great danger, those precious lives of wonderful Indians could have been saved. So, collective informed assertion, 3 words. As far as practicable, how do you make it collective? How do you make it knowledge-based, not merely passionate and heroic and bravado, like in films, but informed knowledge as a tool? And the techniques of assertion in acceptable, modern, democratic, non-obstructive way, which don't provoke hatred, but actually lead to a constructive solution. All these 3 we must work on. And finally, we must realize, a wise general chooses his battles very carefully. A wise general, just because he is the army, will not say, all right, go here, go here, go here. He will be failure everywhere. There are 1,000 problems of India. You know, the number of people who come to me and give me feedback, and if I keep my phone on, the number of phone calls I get. Because of my anxiety to do something, if I get into everything every day, I end up doing nothing nowhere. Strategic. What is the most relevant thing? What is the most contextual thing? What is the best way you can make the greatest impact with the resources and time and energy you have? Unless you use that true strategic strength, decide which battlefield to enter, when and how. It's only your passion, your desire to be seen to be a good guy, but not really meaningful results. So a lot more to it, but I hope you get a sense of how to go about it. Let me conclude. Now, I've enjoyed this interaction. There are no final answers or definitive answers. Whatever I say, don't take it as gospel truth. Just listen, think about it, verify, apply your common sense, compare it to your own experience today and later, ruminate. You will reject some, you will accept some. Whatever makes sense, use it. Whatever you think is not really suiting your way of thinking, perfectly all right. That's what democracy is. There is no final truth and there is no one arbiter of truth. There is no one way of doing it. There are 1,000 ways of doing it. I'm sure others equally or even more committed and more intelligent and more passionate than me will come and tell you some completely opposite things. Nothing wrong. But don't go by what they say merely because they said it. That's where your knowledge, your understanding, your application of the logical faculties and your relation to your experience and understanding the global experience, that matters. The second thing is, never lose optimism. Sometimes things take longer. Let me conclude with one story. In 1819, I think, a boy called Ignaz Semmelweis was born in the then Hungary, Austro-Hungarian Empire it was. Semmelweis became a doctor, a physician in those days. He moved to Vienna, the capital of Austro-Hungarian Empire, the seat of empire. Vienna was a great city, a political center and cultural center. Even today, Vienna is one of the most vibrant centers of culture in Europe. He discovered to his horror in his medical practice that about 30 to 40% of women, pregnant women, were dying during childbirth. Imagine, 1/4 to 1/3 women were dying merely because they were women bearing a child. Not too long ago, just about 150 years ago, the world was so terrible. So if you are pessimistic, please erase that stupidity. That remember how far we have come as a human society. So Semmelweis, he tried to understand how to stop it. As a good doctor, my calling is to prevent loss of unnecessary lives. So what can I do? Remember, those days there was no knowledge. Most of the deaths were because of what was called puerperal fever. It simply means fever around the time of childbirth. Balanta jwaram. Nobody knew why. The word bacteria was not discovered, invented. Bacteria were not discovered. Leeuwenhoek only later on he saw in a microscope bacteria. The word infection was not known. The causation was not known. So they were dying. Semmelweis had no benefit of the science we had later on. But he kept on experimenting, what we call empiricism. And he discovered that if only you washed your hands properly, what we now call sterilization, all these modern techniques, COVID time we're all doing that, right? So he discovered if only we washed our hands properly, if a doctor before assisting a woman in labor and after helping her before going to the next patient again washing properly, he discovered miraculously the death rate came down to 2 or 3%, from 30-40% to 2 or 3%. A miracle. It deserves 20 Nobel Prizes. He didn't know why, because the science was not known. But empirically, he saw it. What did he do? He tried to educate not the people of Europe, but the doctors of Europe. He was passionate. He could see people could be saved. He said, please wash your hands. Please wash your hands. You know what the doctors did in Europe? By the time already age of enlightenment, industrial revolution, all that was happening. You know what the doctor said? You fool, you are telling us to wash our hands? What rubbish is this? None of them did it. None of them said, all right, let me also experiment. This man is saying repeatedly, so passionately, let me also try. No. None of them tried it. They laughed him off. They branded him as a madman. Literally, in those days, even today going to a mental hospital is not the best of things. In those days, what a mental hospital beat the hell out of the fellow. He was put in the mental asylum in Vienna. He was thrashed very badly. He died of those injuries at the age of 46 in 1865. Fast forward one generation. 3 men influenced by Semmelweis, his philosophy, his teachings, and subsequent developments began to happen. In one generation, Robert Koch. Now it's very difficult to contain emotion for me. I almost tear up when I think of Semmelweis. So 3 men, Robert Koch, the man who discovered tubercle bacilli, the TB, the man who came up with Koch's postulates. When you say COVID caused by so-and-so virus, it's not a statement made by somebody. There are some protocols, there are some standards to be met scientifically. Those postulates were discovered by Robert Koch. The second man, a man called Lister, even today Listerine, the mouthwash. Okay. A third man, Pasteur, you must have heard, pasteurization. The man who first came up with the vaccine against smallpox. Okay. These 3 men, all contemporaries, one generation later, impacted by Semmelweis. The world changed. The death rate fell. Now, if you read from Semmelweis' point of view, his lifetime, what is this? Mankind is disaster. No, mankind is like this only. But no. Sometimes it takes a generation. We are not that smart. A few people, a few visionaries are very smart, far-sighted. As human society world over, from Vienna to India, from 18th century to 20th century, we are not that smart. We are stupid sometimes. Oftentimes we are stupid. Don't give up. Technology can be transplanted instantly. But institutions and practices sometimes takes time. But be assured, It happens because human beings are smart enough to recognize what is in their self-interest. They may not have logical faculty, but when they see sufficient evidence, they know it actually makes sense. So don't ever despair. There will be hard knocks. There will be some obstacles, particularly when the society is what you want to change, not merely a piece of technology. A new iPhone comes in, next day you all want to buy. That's easy. But institutions and practices take time. But change they will. That is the human condition. That's why we are always better. I started off with every generation being better than earlier generation. Never lose that faith, that optimism. Just because we are not able to change India's elections today, if I give up, it's stupidity. It may take another 20 years. But as more evidence comes, more compelling arguments come, more human experience mounts, it will change. There's no question about it. So have that confidence about humanity as a whole. You will have a wonderful time, as I said. I'm not joking you. This is the best of all generations because whatever is possible for the human beings to accomplish, to fulfill the stuff of dreams of the past, today it's within our hands. And you are privileged because you are able to get access to that knowledge, that understanding in a fine institution. Make the most of it. Enjoy your lives. There's nothing, no, it's not sinful to have a good life, to have a happy life. And remember, individual goals and collective good must go together, not one at the cost of the other. Without the collective good, individual goals will not take you far because you'll still live in misery. No matter how rich and influential and wealthy you are, you build a big mansion, but the mosquito that bites the neighborhood urchin will also enter your home. Mosquito will not say, this girl is very bright, she's very intelligent, she is picked up by Tatas or some Microsoft or somebody else, she built a beautiful house, I must not enter their house. Mosquitoes are truly socialist. They treat everybody equally. They enter your home also, they will bite you and your children. And they will transmit the dengue virus or something else. If you want to control mosquitoes, you have to take care of the collect. It's as simple as that. There's nothing very noble about it. It's very practical. So individual goals, have a happy life, productive life, enjoy life to the hilt. But remember, without the collective things also being in a decent shape, you cannot have a good life. That's all that's required, nothing much more. If you talk too much about patriotism, Mahatma Gandhi, sacrifice, I get very suspicious. I wish you all the very best. Good luck.
Like and subscribe Eagle Media Works.